Immersive storytelling, as we've talked about, allows readers to feel like they're experiencing events rather than just watching them. So it increases kind of the reality sharing aspect of journalism. It can lend credibility. It can help your audience learn more. There's a lot of research that's being done as to the benefits of immersive storytelling for the roles of journalists. And so um, it is starting to be a growing trend in the industry to be able to use immersive forms of storytelling and technology, but it's also a way to keep journalism really competitive in this very increasingly entertainment driven world. And so, a lot of people, I think, get concerned about doing immersive storytelling because they feel like they don't have the know-how. They don't feel like they're technologically savvy enough or whatever it is. But a lot of people like just have a concern about being able to do it. And so my goal for this project is to really introduce you guys to certain forms of immersive storytelling at a very beginning level, introductory. You don't have to have any prior experience, to let you know that you can do 360, you can do virtual reality, you can do augmented reality, and it can only increase your storytelling skills and make you more competitive on the job market. Speaking of jobs, just super quick, if you are a broadcasting student, I want you to go ahead and apply to that WRBL Columbus internship. Jean Kirkconnell is an amazing person to work for. I worked for him at VTM 13, and he loves Montevallo students. So check out the announcement that I posted today. They are offering in-person internships. And I'm also following up with some additional contacts here in Birmingham and Montgomery to find other opportunities for internships at the broadcast level, but also for our print scholars. So just FYI. All right. So there are many different forms of immersive storytelling. The first is 360 video, and this is when you present the reality in a more immersive way. It's you have to have a real event, a real location in order to shoot. Just like any broadcasting story, you're really just showing the audience what's going on. But the unique aspect of it is that it allows you to do so in a way that shows the complete 360 reality as opposed to the one directional, um, regular type of video. Um, the great thing about 360 video is when you upload 360 videos into video players, you can look at 360 videos both on your phone and on your website without VR headsets. Now they become more immersive when you're wearing the VR headsets, of course, but it is a great way to let all types of audiences experience immersive storytelling without them having to invest a headset. On the production side of things, 360 videos can be shot very simply using like Storyspheres, what you guys are going to be using, stills that get stitched together, or with special equipment. Now, we have invested here at Montevallo in some very high quality 360 videos where they stand on a tripod. You hit play, you go and run and hide under a bush so you can't be seen or something. And then the camera will actually spin 360 to show the complete environment. Now, that does typically involve some sort of editing in Premiere afterwards, but it's pretty basic. So I know Ryan is currently taking Dr. Stephanie Dean's immersive storytelling class, in which they're doing stories on environmental issues with the environmental studies department. It is really fascinating. I'm really excited to see the products of that class, but know that more of that is coming in our curriculum. So So here's an example of being able to use 360 video in journalism.
This is the original family homestead.
Holly Schallberg's family has had this farm for generations. It's more than 100 acres just outside of Caldwell and is home to a wide assortment of animals.
Horses, mules, 2 goats, bunch of chickens, and a miniature pony.
But just in the past week, they've added one more, a goose. You can say he's kind of adopted them.
Well, not us, but the car.
Yep, this honker has the hots for Holly's hot rod Lincoln. And he's very protective of it. Just look how he goes after our less than fearless cameraman.
To be fair, I'd be running.
Hope
too.
you saw his reaction.
Geese or me.
He came at me.
Okay.
So protective.
So you can actually see the camera here. They've put it up on their car.
Here he comes. He's in the air.
Is he?
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
And you can see him coming up from behind on the passenger side.
Here he comes.
So the first time this happened, what were you thinking?
I was shocked. I was scared.
He's right over here off our right shoulder now. There he is. There's Lincoln.
Holly found out how far the waterfowl will take his affection for her car
Yeah, here he comes.
the hard way.
This is crazy.
The day after he,
I know. It puts a real kink in the day.
and Holly has since named him Lincoln, the day after Lincoln landed in her yard.
So I go to pick up my niece at her preschool and notice, and the bird's trotting down the driveway and takes off, flies right behind me, and was keeping the pace 50 miles an hour all the way.
Holly's only explanation for Lincoln's infatuation?
He's in love. It's the car. It's not me. He won't follow me to the mailbox. He won't follow me anywhere else. He will not leave this car.
There are times when Holly slows down that Lincoln slides in front, putting the brakes on the drive and Holly's day.
See, it makes it really difficult.
He wants you to stop.
She's been wanting to get her nails done for a week.
I have
Same.
red boxes that are late. I can't go to the grocery store. I can't get anything done because he monopolizes the car.
So what happens when he's like right in front of you like that? You just kind of
I
inch
just have
along?
to sit.
Oh, really?
I have to sit or I honk a couple of times, but I don't know if he thinks the horn's maybe a mating call.
Getting going again can lead Lincoln to other hazards.
Oh, watch out, watch out, watch out.
Oh, Lincoln.
Oh,
Stop that truck.
here he comes. Yeah, he's a traffic stopper.
So this has become the new normal for Holly and her car, at least for now, or at least until Lincoln finds another mate for nesting season.
How you doing, bud?
It's too funny. Makes for a great story.
Until then, Holly Schallberg will be known as the Mother Goose of Canyon County, the one with a literal wingman, whenever she takes her Lincoln for a drive.
So that's just one story. I actually was judging for RT DNA when I saw that story for the first time. This shop in Idaho invested in like a ton of 360 cameras, and now they produce all different kinds of stories. There's one about base jumping that's really cool. But if you were wearing a VR headset, if you were wearing a VR headset, you as the viewer would be able to move your head and you would be able to see the video without physically turning it like I am. But even the average viewer can still do this because all it requires is YouTube, right? So that's the use of 360 video. You can also see that a lot of these stories could be told, but not to the immersive degree that they could be with 360. Now, virtual reality is really the next step in immersion. Virtual reality brings viewers into a new world as opposed to showing them or reflecting the actual world in a more immersive way. It's creating a whole new world that is virtual in nature. Now, a lot of times 360 video kind of falls under virtual reality because what you're doing is you're having that person experience a world that they're not sitting in right in that moment in a 360 nature. But we typically only speak about 360 video in terms of virtual reality when someone is wearing the immersive headset because you lose a sense of that like immersion or being there when you're just kind of scrolling through on YouTube. So that's the difference. So typically it can be 360 video. That's its most common use in journalism. But you can also build entire realities from graphics using programs like Unity, which are very easy to learn. I'm not a graphic designer. I am not very skilled at making motion graphics and things, but I can use Unity and I have built my own virtual realities and things like that. So there are lots of uses for it, and it's actually pretty intuitive to how you can build those. These often require headsets, which makes it harder for the average viewer to watch it. And it often requires more equipment on the journalist, such as having a 360 camera, having programs or software like Unity, and then you also need headsets to then be able to test the virtual realities that you're creating. So here is an example of a VR journalist who is trying to use VR to reflect realities while protecting identities of vulnerable groups. And so this experience is meant to create empathy in the viewer for those who are experiencing hunger in Los Angeles.
You shouldn't be standing here. You know
Oops.
you're blocking the... You should be in line where your number is. Please don't push.
So what he's done is he's actually gone to a food shelter and he's recorded actual audio from this, right? But it would be unethical for this journalist to show the faces of people who are in this line because they're vulnerable populations. You don't want to reflect their vulnerability there. So instead, he's made it a virtual graphic.
We're slowing down a little bit. There's too many people. There's too many people. Somebody just... Okay, he's having a seizure. Okay.
Need help. Yeah, we need ambulance. Somebody is please. Saliva is falling down right now.
Hurry up.
So you can see as an audience member how that brings you into a reality that you might not be able to experience while also protecting those that that would be vulnerable. Now, something interesting, he's also done this for Planned Parenthood to talk to young women who have decided to get an abortion, who did not want to appear on camera. So he uses their audio, but then creates graphics to make that immersive experience. But something interesting is that after he made that video for Planned Parenthood, the VR for Planned Parenthood, a lot of viewers started having increased sensitivity, and this actually reflects in research too. So you can see that especially in solutions or community journalism, VR can be very helpful in bringing your audience to places that they normally couldn't go. Augmented reality is the third type of immersive storytelling. AR changes the world in which a user is already experiencing. So this is when you take your current reality, so in my case, my office, right? And then you superimpose or add graphics to it to create an augmented experience or reality. Typically, we do this through superimposed images or videos that go on top of our current reality, whether that's a live shot or our stand ups, things of that nature. The good thing is that it's a low barrier of entry for our audience, meaning that people can see your augmented reality just with the phone or with their website. As long as they can view video, they can view augmented reality. Really, the first use of augmented reality by broadcast journalists or journalists in general, was using the graphics that you see in sports, right? Think about oh gosh, this is where I get into trouble with sports metaphors. The line that appears on the field, like it's a down marker, right? Like, that little like line that appears on top of the field to tell you where people need to go in order to make the play or whatever. Those are superimposed graphics on an actual reality. My husband would be so embarrassed for me right now. But you can see that we've been using augmented reality for a long time, but not necessarily speaking of it in that nature. Now, the software in terms of production can be a little more intensive to learn and use. Have any of you done any work in Adobe After Effects yet? No. So a little bit, Victoria? Cool. Excellent. Well, it's harder than Premiere, but not necessarily as hard as like building an entire virtual world. But you have to kind of know what you're doing, right? So you have to kind of train yourself. So in terms of using it for journalism, the Weather Channel has actually started doing this, and I think it's really fascinating. So here they're talking about flooding and what that would look like. Well, obviously, a reporter cannot stand in the middle of a flood that goes to their head, right? But by using augmented reality, they're able to show that. They're able to show the damages that can be done. They talk about weather phenomena, right? And so you can see they're in a studio, they're in a reality, but they're superimposing graphics to then explain and talk about aspects of their reporting. So these kind of explainer augmented realities are a growing need for us to learn as journalists. And by the way, all of these links are available on the slides that I put up. So if you want to watch them and kind of immerse yourself more in them, that's great. Now, mixed reality is a combination of AR and VR. It's using the environment to interact with virtual objects. So while AR just superimposes the graphic on your reality, mixed reality allows you to then interact with and play with those pieces from the virtual world, right? Again, you're most likely using After Effects for this. And it's been very popular in gaming. So Pokemon Go was one of the first mixed reality apps that became extremely popular. And of course, Wizards Unite. I don't know anyone who would play that. But if you like Harry Potter, it might be a good game. So here. So obviously I was talking about gaming, and so therefore got served an ad on gaming. Super cool. But once we get through these ads, I can show you a demonstration of how someone is using AR through mixed reality using a virtual reality headset to help educate and learn. There it is. Okay.
I get to show you something very special. It's something we've been looking forward to for many years. When we set out to build HoloLens 2, we wanted to create something that you didn't need to learn how to use. You should just know it. And we call this instinctual interaction. Let me show you. Now, as Alex mentioned, the HoloLens 2 is very comfortable. It fits just like a hat. And the only thing that's even more effortless is how I'm automatically signed in. With Windows Hello and iOS authentication, the HoloLens 2 is actually.
So you're seeing what she's seeing in her headset. They're superimposing the graphics of the VR, AR, of what she's seeing.
As I put on my device. Now, Not only does the HoloLens 2 recognize me, it also recognizes my hands. Look at this. Fully articulated hand tracking. And as I move my hands around, the HoloLens 2 is actually calibrating to my unique hand size. And of course, not only does the HoloLens 2 recognize me and my hands, it also recognizes the world. Welcome to my mixed reality home. This is the place where I have all the apps and content that I use every day. Let's check some of them out. Now, I've seen many people put on HoloLens for the first time, and the first thing people do when they put on the device is they reach out their hands and try and touch the holograms. And now, you can. Look at the way that the hologram's responding to my hand, almost inviting me to touch it. And in fact, I can just grab this corner to resize it. Or I can rotate it, or move it. That's right. We are touching holograms. This is an app I've got called Spatial. Let me just put it right there. I've got another app here called Vuforia View. Now, it's a little big, so let me just use 2 hands here to make it smaller, and then rotate it so you can see. There we go. And then let me put it down here near Spatial, maybe make it a bit smaller. Yeah, that's nice. All right, now let's switch gears and talk about a different kind of application. I've got a browser over there, but it's kind of far away, and I don't really want to watch options for HoloLens 2. And the playground is just a tiny sampling of the many prototypes that we built, tested, and learned from. Our approach is basically to try out as many things as we could and look for the things that stood out. So, for example, here I've got 3 sliders. Each of them is controlling this wind farm simulation, but each in a different way, using a different interaction technique. One of the things we tried is this touch slider here. So here I can just stick my finger in the slider and have it go to a particular value to control that wind speed there. It felt okay. We also tried this push slider. So this guy can kind of nudge from side to side, kind of like an abacus, which was interesting.
An abacus is how we used to do math before. Just kidding. Anyway, so I mean, the world is incredibly open to immersive storytelling, but we're really in early stages of that immersive storytelling. And so if you can be the early adopters of this kind of technology and learning how to produce it specifically for journalism and storytelling, think about the job opportunities that open up then, right? And so VR is probably the most accessible and used in journalism right now. I've shown you a couple of journalism stories that are using it. This is a TED Talk from one of the leading experts in virtual reality storytelling. We're going to listen to a bit of this, but I encourage you to go back and actually listen to this full interview, or TED Talk rather, because it's really fascinating and I think you'll enjoy it.
What if I could present you a story that you would remember with your entire body and not just with your mind? My whole life as a journalist, I've really been compelled to try to make stories that can make a difference and maybe inspire people to care. I've worked in print, I've worked in documentary, I've worked in broadcast, but it really wasn't until I got involved with virtual reality that I started seeing these really intense, authentic reactions from people that really blew my mind. So, the deal is that with VR, virtual reality, I can put you on scene in the middle of the story. By putting on these goggles, right, that track wherever you look, you get this whole body sensation, like you're actually like there. So 5 years ago is about when I really began to push the envelope with using virtual reality and journalism together. And I wanted to do a piece about hunger. Families in America are going hungry, food banks are overwhelmed, and they're often running out of food. Now, I knew I couldn't make people feel hungry, but maybe I could figure out a way to get them to feel something physical. So, again, this was 5 years ago. So, doing journalism and virtual reality together was considered a worse than half-baked idea, and I had no funding. Believe me, I had a lot of colleagues laughing at me. And I did, though, have a really great intern, a woman named Michaela Kopsa-Mark. And together we went out to food banks and started recording audio and photographs until one day she came back to my office and she was bawling. She was just crying. She'd been on scene at a long line where the woman running the line was feeling extremely overwhelmed, and she was screaming, you know, there's too many people, there's too many people. And this man with diabetes doesn't get food in time. His blood sugar drops too low, and he collapses into a coma.
Yeah,
As soon as
this
I heard
is
that
what
audio,
we just watched.
I knew that this would be the kind of evocative piece that could really describe what was going on at food banks. So here's the real line. You can see how long it was, right? And again, as I said, we didn't have very much funding, so I had to reproduce it with virtual humans that were donated, and people beg and borrow favors to help me create the models and make things as accurate as we could. And then we tried to convey what happened that day with as much accuracy as was possible.
There's too many people. There's too many people. Or somebody that's okay, he's having a seizure. Okay.
Need help. Yeah, we need ambulance, somebody.
So the man on the right, for him, he's walking around the body, right? For him, he's in the room with that body. Like that guy is at his feet. And even though with peripheral vision, he can see that he's in this lab space, right? He should be able to see that he's not actually on the street. But he feels like he's there with those people. Very cautious not to step on this guy who isn't really there, right? So that piece ended up going to Sundance in 2012, a kind of amazing thing. And it was the first virtual reality film ever, basically. And when we went, I was really terrified. I didn't really know how people were going to react and what was going to happen. And we showed up with these like duct tape pair of goggles.
Oh, you're crying. You're crying. Gina, you're crying.
So you can hear the surprise in my voice, right? And this kind of reaction ended up being the kind of reaction we saw over and over and over. People down on the ground trying to comfort the seizure victim, trying to whisper something into his ear or in some way, you know, help, even though they couldn't. And I had a lot of people come out of that piece saying, oh my God, I was so frustrated, I couldn't help the guy, and take that back into their lives. So after this piece was made, the dean of the cinema school at USC, at the University of Southern California, brought in the head of the World Economic Forum to try hunger. And he took off the goggles and he commissioned a piece about Syria on the spot. And I really wanted to do something about Syrian refugee kids because children have been the worst affected by the Syrian civil war. I sent a team to the border of Iraq to record material at refugee camps, basically in an area I wouldn't send a team now, as that's where ISIS is really operating. And then we also recreated a street scene in which a young girl is singing and a bomb goes off. Now, when you're in the middle of that scene and you hear those sounds and you see the injured around you, it's an incredibly scary and real feeling. I've had individuals who've been involved in real bombings tell me that it evokes the same kind of fear. We were then invited to take the piece to the Victoria and Albert Museum in London. And it wasn't advertised, and we were put in this tapestry room. There was no press about it, so anybody who happened to walk into the museum to visit it that day would see us with these crazy lights. You know, maybe they wanted to see the old storytelling of the tapestries. They were confronted by our virtual reality cameras. But a lot of people tried it, and over a 5-day run, we ended up with 54 pages of guest book comments. And we were told by the curators there that they'd never seen such an outpouring.
So I want you guys to think about what journalism is facing today. This extreme distrust of media, this feeling that journalists are terrible, horrible people, who just want to take advantage of others, right? Now, think about the level of compassion and empathy that you just witnessed from 2 journalism projects using immersive storytelling. So, this should kind of give you an idea of what is possible for VR and storytelling. So, how are you guys going to do this? I know you're excited, right? And probably a little scared, but you don't need to be, because the really cool thing is that with a few simple apps, you have the ability to tell immersive stories yourself. So, I actually did a workshop on immersive storytelling last summer, and was called the PhD Digital Bootcamp. And I learned how to do something called Storyspheres. It was taking the Google Street View app and creating a 360 video through still photo stitching. So instead of doing video, I'm using still photography to create a 360 experience. And then you can overlay sounds on top of these story spheres, which allow you to experience something for yourself. So this was also during the quarantine, where we were not allowed to leave our homes. And I picked the worst possible place to do a 360 video because it was all lines, which means that your photos have to line up perfectly. Otherwise, they get stitched in the wrong way, right? Or put together in the wrong way. But I was kind of pleased with how it turned out. So I live in Lake Wilburn in Hoover, and we have these like canoes, right, that we can just take out, and they're really fun, whatever. So I did this 360s, and you can see again, like, why would I choose a place with a ton of lines to do this? But you can experience it like you're there, right? And then you can integrate actual interviews into your 360 as well. Where are we today?
We're at Lake Wilburn.
And what do you like to do at Lake Wilburn?
I like to canoe.
And what do you like about canoeing?
Paddling the boat.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about a recent time that you went canoeing.
The last time I went there is when I went with my mommy and we saw a bunch of animals.
What kind of animals did you see?
We saw fishies, turtles, and ducks.
Very fun. So do you like that Lake Wilburn offers these free canoes and free life jackets so families can go out?
Mm-hmm. And that God made beautiful moths for us to live in beautiful nature.
Yeah. Well, thank you for interviewing with me today.
You're welcome.
All right. So obviously this is like a home-based project and it was during the quarantine, but you can see how this could be translated into a journalism story, right? So here is a story sphere that a friend who is at the J School in Mizzou created. So she did the exact same assignment essentially, but she, being the overachiever that she is, created it where you can actually like step through into different parts of the school. And so then you have interviews with different people, right?
Our founding dean, Walter Williams himself,
Ernest Yu Yanzhang, the director of China program at the Midway School of Journalism.
Right. So like you can see she has.
So in the recent years, the School of Journalism
That's
follows
this person.
the footprints.
So she has the ability to tell all of these different stories. And you can come back, you can see like, oh, what's this plaque here?
On this campus, the world's first school of journalism was founded by Walter Williams on September 1st, 1908.
Okay.
The 2 stone lines that standing the archway between Neff and Walter Williams' house once guarded a Confucian temple in China.
So they're explaining the history of these 2 we're doing a historical time bag story that immerses through 360 video. So how do we do this? Well, you're going to be using your Google Street View app in order to do that. So I hope most of you went ahead and downloaded the app. If you want to, you can open it up on your phone if you're able. Let me get us set up to screen share. Set up do not disturb so my husband doesn't text me something while I'm sharing my screen. Not that that has ever happened, y'all. Let me see. Oh, it's not on Wi-Fi. All right. So I'm going to show you how to use the app. So while I'm setting this up, you guys open up your app if you can. You don't have to open up your app, but it'll help you learn. All right. Can you guys see my screen sharing? Cool. Excellent. All right. So, nope. There it is. All right. So here's the Google Street View app. Please note it is different than actual Google Maps, right? But you can see some of the ones that have been created, and there are crazy impressive story spheres that have been created in here. I just love it. But what it's doing is it's allowing you to pick a location and then photo stitch photos of the location together to form a 360 video. So the first step in doing a story sphere or a 360 through Google Street View is clicking right here on this little camera button, right, that you see. So you'll click that camera and then you're going to say, take photosphere, take photosphere. I can't talk, y'all. Photosphere. There we go. Thanks, Jojo, for laughing at me. I appreciate it. Hey, we all got to laugh at ourselves, right? All right. So you can see that all it's doing is asking me to find the circle, line up my camera with that circle, and then I turn as steady as possible until I find the next circle. Okay. And y'all get to see my messy office. So, okay. So I have just created a 360 video. Okay. And you just keep going, you know? Hey, there you guys are again. All right. Now you may notice that something looks a little odd, right? It's because we didn't do, like, I'm moving, right? I'm not steadying my shot, right? You'll also notice that I just turned 360, and yet the check mark down at the bottom only has the orange circle about 1/4 of the way done. The reason for that is I have not captured my full environment yet. There's one. So now I'm going to go up. All right. And you just keep going until that circle down at the bottom, and try to do it slow, try to do it deliberately, not like I'm doing it because, you know, blah. All right. And then you're just filling in all of the gray space that you find, right? Hey, this actually isn't all that bad. I'm kind of hard on myself on stuff like this too, by the way. All right. Boop. Wonder Woman. Got to make sure we get her on my pages. Lots of Disney stuff. I know that shocks y'all. All right. So sometimes I have to be like, okay, Storysphere, where did I miss? Oh, I missed the floor. Duh. Right? And so, yeah, you just keep going. Boop, 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 boop. This is the fun part of this assignment that I'm like trying to get it to get done, but I still have to do the actual assignment. No one wants to see my advising documents because they're boring. All right. Boop. And Hey, good thing I, put on real pants today. Yay. All right. So, yep. So now you see that the circle at the check mark has turned green. So now I can do it. And there is now a new Storysphere ready to publish. So from here, you are going to go into, why didn't this open? Interesting. All right. So you're going to go into Canvas. And you're going to use this document right here that says Storysphere's instructions. And it has a full list of how you do it. Okay. Starting from opening up the app. Okay. So then you need to use a separate app to record audio narration. We've already talked about that, right? Needs to be at least a minute long. You can edit the audio in iMovie, Premiere Pro, but it needs to be in an MP3 file format. If you need to convert an iPhone voice memo to MP3, here's how you do it. You can also use free sites like Online-Convert to do that. And then you're going to go to the Storysphere's website. It is free. You shouldn't have to, it's going to tell you that you want to sign up for like all their cool services. You don't have to, just choose the free version, right? You're going to upload the 360 image from your phone, choose next. So again, it walks you through it. Now, when you're in Storyspheres, you're going to want to pick a place to put your sound. If you're having multiple clips of sound, you can place them in multiple places, like we saw in the Ms. U Storysphere. But you need to think about where those audio clips are going to go, because when your audience turns, they will hear that audio better when they're looking at certain parts. You may have noticed, like when we were listening to Skylar, as I was turning away from her, the audio got softer. And that's because in reality, when I'm sitting here talking to you in the direction that we're talking, I can hear you louder. But when I turn away, then I can't hear you as loudly. So that's why it does that.